Hi, I'm Rod Solar.
And I'm Laura Livesey.
And we're Livesey Solar, and we're on a mission to help you grow the practice and the life that you love.
On today's podcast, we're talking about the patient journey. And what I mean by that is the patient journey at the most relationship-oriented step that you can begin in the middle of the marketing process, which is the first appointment, the first time when you generally shake hands with somebody and get involved with them. So I think we're going to walk you through it, and I'm going to be the patient, and we're going to take you through, and you can experience what it's like to have an ideal initial appointment. So, Rod, I've booked my appointment. I've had a really good phone call. I've trusted the person on the end of the phone enough to say, okay, yeah, I've maybe talked to 2-3 clinics and thought, yeah, okay, this is the one I want to see, or maybe I'm even going to 2. Let's just pretend I'm going to 2. So I booked an appointment. I'm coming to see you. So what happens next if you're giving me the ideal experience?
Okay, well, it all starts by laying the groundwork and setting the scene. So, and I like this kind of theatrical language because it really is all about theater. It's about being on stage versus being off stage. I'll get into that in a moment. So how do you set the scene? Well, it all begins with the confirmation letter. And that's what, a step a lot of people kind of overlook. That confirmation letter has to be exciting. It's got to tell people what to expect. It has to take personal responsibility and written on a one-to-one level in terms of a personal tone. It also has to give people an idea. If you're in the high price category, it should give them an idea of what you charge. I'm not expecting you to send a whole price list, like a menu or something like that, but it should give them a guide. Otherwise, you'll end up having people, show up at your practice who have no intention of paying what you charge. And lastly, it needs to tell them everything in terms of what to expect in terms of what you're going to do for them. And any list of important instructions that they need to do or bring to the consultation so that they're well prepared. And also, importantly, a form attached so that they can complete that form ahead of time and save you time when they actually get to the consultation.
Okay, nice. So you've sent me this, and I didn't get one from the other player, or let's say the other player did send me the typical form letter, which is very perfunctory and, uninteresting and boring. So it's like, okay, already this clinic is winning. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's next? What happens?
So what's next is you show up. And here's what's important is, like, in a lot of diaries, we say, okay, in our diary, it might say the appointment starts at 9. I always like to advise clinics, tell your patients to arrive 15 minutes before, but don't tell them in that context. Tell them your appointment is at 8:45 for a 9 o'clock appointment. Why? Because clinics run late, and most people will not bring in their forms. They'll have to actually fill in their forms. They might be late. And so this allows us to start on time, even if they're late. So once they come in, then here's what happens. The receptionist identifies who they are, ideally through the camera that's on your front door. A lot of intercom systems have a camera, and then knows that you're actually walking in. You're a new patient. They stand up from their desk, extend their hand, and welcome the patient to the clinic. That's number one.
Nice.
And, I want you to think about it, how do people do it in the 5-star hotels, right? Are they sitting behind a desk, on the phone or talking to their colleagues? If they are, then it's really doesn't deserve the 5-star moniker. They've got to be there, engaged, ready to go. And I advise other people who are in the practice to not go in the back behind reception and start out conversations or hang out or eat their lunch or all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's gotta be backstage behavior. That's off stage. You don't see the actors hanging around during the big scenes, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing here is we're putting on a play, and this receptionist needs to smile, welcome that patient, and be there, for them.
Yeah, so I'm already feeling welcomed. I'm already feeling very different to how I feel when I go into most environments, most business environments in the UK. The reception team is usually disinterested. They're literally just checking boxes. They're barely breathing, and they really don't seem like they're having a very good time. So I'm already sort of feeling good. And again, this is really what we're after here, is to feel good as I go through the process and start to get excited. Yeah. Okay, so I'm starting to feel a little bit excited. So I've greeted the receptionist. Right. I feel like, okay, I'm a human being. They see that I'm human.
And it goes further than that. Receptionist offers to take your coat, offers to take your bags and put them in a secure location, and says, thank you for coming. I'd like to invite you to complete our registration form if you haven't brought one already with you. Here it is. It takes about 10 minutes to complete, if that's how long it takes. You give them an indication of what to expect, and you also, make sure that they actually know how much time they have, so they don't spend dilly-dallying it. Then the receptionist, they're standing up already, leads them to the seat and says, have a seat. Once they sit down, they say, can I get you a tea or coffee?
And so then, I'm starting to feel really cared for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you should feel like you're at a spa, right? So you're sat down now, and the receptionist now, offers you a tea and coffee. And do they say, yeah, it's right over there? No, they actually go
Which
and get.
Which is common.
Exactly. They go get the coffee or tea for you. And when they return with the tea or coffee, they say, there you go. Your patient liaison will be with you in 15 minutes. If you need to use the facilities, it's right over there. Ask me if you need help. If you need the Wi-Fi, that's our sign right over there. If you need a phone, just ask me, right?
Yeah, that's excellent. So you've thought about me.
Yeah.
You've thought about, I'm in a brand new environment. I have no idea where anything is. I might want to do a quick work thing before my appointment. You've basically made me feel welcome, and you've taken care of my needs. So I'm feeling really good.
Yeah, good. Now the receptionist fills in some details and alerts the patient liaison. And I always recommend clinics to have a patient liaison to do this next part of the process. So they let them know, okay, your patient's here. And that patient liaison takes the initiative at the prescribed moment to get up out of their office. And again, they should be in their own room because they have to have a private conversation with this individual. That's often overlooked. And in terms of planning a clinic, nobody ever thinks about that. But it's really important when building a clinic, you actually put a room for these kind of conversations. The patient liaison comes out, ensures that the patient has completed their form. And you know that because the receptionist has probably received it. Then you go to the patient and you introduce yourself. So I would say, hi, welcome to whatever the clinic is. My name is Rod, and I'll be your patient liaison. I'd invite you to come in and have a chat with me in my office. Is that okay? And then the patient says, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
And they escort you to the office. They don't turn around and walk off and expect you to chase behind them. They walk with you and have a little warm-up chat along the way. So, the basic warm-up questions are like things like, so how was your journey in? I read you're from West Sussex. Did it take long for you to get here? What's the weather like outside? All these basic things, right? Then they lead them into the room and they say, please take a seat. So right away, they're showing leadership, and they're showing the patient that they're in command and they're in control, and the patient doesn't have to stress or feel like they have to take the lead.
Great. Okay. So now I have met two members of the team. I'm feeling like they're competent, that they know what to do. And what happens to me next? Right.
So the warm-up can continue a little bit. You've shaken hands already. You've done the greeting, and, there's a little bit of chit-chat and small talk. I advise patient liaisons never to skip that. I advise nobody to skip that because, again, these are human beings, and it's not a transactional thing.
And just a quick aside, what is the point of that? Why are we warming up? Why do we talk about inane weather things?
Yeah, we're trying to relieve tension. Okay. Patients are anxious. Most patients, when they walk into a new environment, especially a medical one, they're anxious about what's going to happen. They're a little fearful, about what kind of tests they're going to have, if they're going to be found unsuitable, if the doctor's going to find something strange. All these things are going through their head. And actually, one of the other things too is they're worried about being sold to, and they're worried about what the interactions are going to be like. Am I going to like them? Are they going to be rude to me? Unfortunately, most people in this country don't have a lot of experience with private health. What they're conditioned to is, situations where perhaps they're not treated as well. And they're anxious about that. So if you can really, really warm them up and make them feel comfortable, they're going to open up to you at the next stage, which is super important.
Okay, so I'm ready now to answer some questions.
Right. Well, even before that, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do for the day. So my intent statement is delivered after that. So what is that? Well, basically, it's simple as this. I tell you what to expect very, very clearly. So I might start with a question. So that's great. Thanks very much for coming. Laura, do you have any idea of what we plan to do together today? And you would say,
no,
not really.
Not really.
Or I suppose you're going to assess me for treatment.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, great. Well, here's what I'm going to do. So whatever they answer, you just respond with what you're going to do. So here's my agenda. So in other words, first we're going to have a little chat, right? Then after we have a little chat, what I'm going to do during that chat is I'm going to ask you some questions. It's going to be about your motivations, concerns you might have, anything you want to make sure I flag up to the doctor to discuss.
So again, you're getting my needs,
Exactly.
feeling good about that.
Yeah, and letting you know beforehand.
Getting my input.
Exactly, so you know what's coming. Then, and then after, I'm going to introduce you to the doctor or the technician who will do your tests. I'll explain very, very briefly about that. After you've had a quick conversation or after you've had an examination, they'll provide a recommendation for treatment. And if you're suitable and if you want to be a patient, then you will have another little chat. And at that chat, I will provide with you schedule options and also instructions on how to pay for the next step, right? So
sounds very straightforward.
You're really upfront too, and so you set expectations about what this whole appointment's about. And what this does is it provides patients with an understanding that, okay, I got to take things seriously here. This is real. I'm going through this as a one-time occurrence, and then I'm going to get a recommendation at the end, and I'm going to have to decide then. I'm not going to have to go home and think about it, even though that's okay, but it gets them thinking about it now. Another thing that I find it's important to do is just, to let people know, look, it's entirely possible that we might not have anything for you. We might not be able to help you today. And if that's the case, we'll let you know. However, if we can help you, we will be very clear upfront and recommend the best treatment for you.
So it's very pressure free.
Absolutely.
It sounds like, okay, great. So they're not going to try to force me or twist my arm into something I don't want.
It also changes the power dynamic because as soon as you say that to a patient, they go, oh, I really want what you have. That's why I'm here. But you're saying, we invite many, but we choose few. And what that does is it creates a power dynamic shift where the patient now wants to buy as opposed to feels like they're being sold. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Lastly, you confirm, is everything okay for me to move forward? They say yes. Okay, great. Now you get into the questioning stage. Now, we don't have time to get into every single question, but let me really briefly summarize it as this. First of all, you have to ask all about what's going on now, what's happening before. You have to understand, what their challenges are. Well,
so the before state that we've talked a lot about on other podcasts.
Yeah, and it all transitions through. I mean, so that's why that customer avatar work is so, so important. That before and after grid is so important to write out. So once you've done that, you ask them, right? What's happening before? What's going on? And how do you feel about that? So and then how does that impact your life? I'll give you a really quick example. So tell me, what's your challenge that you're coming here for today? And you might say, well, I wear glasses and I want to get rid of them. Okay, that's great. Fantastic. Job one. Number two, well, how do you feel about wearing glasses? How does that make you feel? And I hate them. I really don't like them. Okay. So what kind of impact has that had on your life so far? What kind of things have you not been able to do as a result of being dependent on glasses? And the patient starts going into, well, I'd like to do more sports. I'd like to have more convenience. I'd like to have more freedom. They start getting emotional. And that's exactly where you want to go, right? Because emotion is what compels people to make decisions. Emotion is what gets people to say yes. And then they justify it with logic. So the first 4 questions that I make sure people ask relate to the before state, specific incidents that disliked about their condition, and the future gain state, so the after state that they're looking to achieve. So
why am I here, basically? Yeah. What do I want out of all this?
Yeah, how do you want life to be?
Kind of essential for the practitioner to know.
Absolutely.
Maybe you essential. Can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So if they come to you and say, oh, I want you to make me look like Nicole Kidman, you might go, okay, this is an important note here that, perhaps, and they're coming in looking like, like Tom Cruise, then you might be thinking, okay, maybe this is something we can't do, right? So you need to make sure that you alert people further down the chain as the patient liaison that, about what's going on. Then you ask questions, numerous questions to justify the rationality behind it, just to provide them with a support structure on which to make a decision. Finally, you just make sure you confirm certain elements. Number one, you confirm, so I understand, here's where you are before. Secondly, I understand where you want to go after. And I understand, here's when you want to do it by. That's the deadline, right? Once you know those 3 things, I basically summarize it as BAD, bad. You know the before, you know the after, you know the deadline. If you got that, then you say, if I can do all that for you, is that something you'd be interested in? And the patient says, yeah, of course, right? That's why I'm here. Exactly. But basically what you've done is you've gotten the patient to say the first yes. And all these yeses then cascade after that.
Yeah. Okay. So I've said yes, and I've become more psychologically invested.
Correct.
In the process, and I'm excited too because I've spoken about my desires. I've spoken about the things I'm moving away from, and it reminds me. Oh yeah, that's why I came here, because I booked this consult maybe 3 weeks ago. Oh yeah, right. Okay, because it's been okay in the last 3 weeks, so it hasn't been as much of a hassle. But today, okay, right. Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm taking my glasses on and off all the time. This is a real hassle. I do want to get rid of this. And then, actually, it sounds like, I could get this. It sounds like you can do it. And I've got, a wedding coming up in 3 months. And hey, wouldn't it be nice if I could be rid of them by then?
Yeah.
So now I'm excited. Maybe this could work for me. I'm not, sold and I'm not ready to buy, but I'm, I'm excited about the potential, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're much better further along than you were when you came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now my job as a patient liaison is to introduce you to the practitioner. So, I mean, in some clinics, that's like a technician. It might be a nurse. It might be an optometrist. It might be a hygienist. It could be any of these different things. Yeah. And so I make sure I inform that next person in the line what's going on so that they are in a better position to deal with you as an individual. They have a little bit more information. I've taken really good notes and I've passed these notes along in the file.
And do you form them in front of me as the patient, or do you inform them sort of privately before you introduce me?
I typically go off stage. First of all, inform the person about what to expect. Like, say I'm talking to an optician or an optometrist. I tell you, okay, here's the story. Here's what they want. Here's where they are now. Well, actually, here's where they are now. Here's what they want. And here's the deadline. That's what I focus on. Then if there's time, and there's not always time in diaries to do this, and we got to be flexible with this. But if there's time, then I go and get the patient and I bring them to the office where the practitioner is, and I introduce them out loud in front of everybody. It's what we call a 3-way handover. So what I do there is I might say, doctor, if they're a doctor, I say, this is Laura. Laura is in this particular before state. She wears glasses and she really doesn't like them. It's having a big impact on the freedom she enjoys in her life. She would like to go to this after state. Now, I'm not saying these words before and after, but I'm just telling them, to be instructive. She would like to be free of those glasses, 100%. And she wants to really experience what it's like to be at that wedding 3 weeks from now, glasses free. And she'd like it done as soon as possible because that wedding, after all, is in 3 weeks' time, right? So I've really linked up what I'm about to offer and what I'm priming the optometrist to do with your life, Laura, so you're like, okay, I get this. This is for me.
It also feels really good because I really hate it when you go into a place, you tell your whole life story to the first person, and then the next person is like, and you are, they don't know anything about me. So you've basically saved me time and hassle because you've done it in front of me, and I know that it's been passed on. Yeah. So I don't have to repeat myself, basically.
Yeah. So I have loads and loads of instructions I give technicians on how to explain tests that they do, how to name them, how to tell people what they're going to feel, how to say if they're special, things like that. I also instruct all sorts of, medical clinicians on how to do the same thing. I'm going to just jump a little beyond that because it's all part of the training, but it would take a long, long time to get through that. And I don't think we have as much time. So really what I'm going to focus on is, say, for example, the last person, which might be the consultant or the surgeon, or maybe in some cases it's the optometrist. It could be another clinician, that they really need to make a strong recommendation. Right. So this is critical. It's, first of all, they have to communicate to the patient that, okay, look, I understand where you've been before. Here we are again, B. I see where you want to go after. And it's, from what I understand, you want to be at this deadline, right? BAD. So does that still sound like something you'd like? And the patient, of course, will say, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Give me the news.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And then you say, guess what? I've got great news for you. You're suitable. Right. So you make it an event.
I can help you.
Yeah. You make it a big deal. It's like, you got to remember, that's why the patients came, right? They actually really desperately want you to help them.
And I had some doubt as to whether you could.
Yeah.
And your website intonated that as well. Yeah. We can't help everybody. So
That's right.
Can you help me or not? Okay, so you can help me.
That's right. And I make a big deal out of it.
Reassuring. It's relieving.
Relieving and exciting.
Yeah.
Right? And if I'm not excited about it, then how can I expect you to be excited about it? If I look at it as like, well, I tell people this, 10 times a day.
Yeah, you're suitable.
Yeah, that's not good enough, right? Like this is their first time, ideally.
Yeah.
And so I got to make an event of it. Now, at this stage, I say, okay, so now that I've told you that you are suitable, here's what I think you're suitable for, A, B, or D. You lay out the options, right? You give the pros and cons of each, but not too many, right? Just limit it. Only
or these are the pros and cons, and this is what I would do, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I were in your shoes, I would choose this, right?
Right.
Based on these things, right? And then you finish that up by inviting the patient to ask some questions, and you make sure it's like, do you have any questions, any clinical questions for me that I can help address so that you can feel 100% confident that you're making the right decision, right? So you're really, really affirmatively asking if they have any questions with the full assumption that they're going to move forward, because why wouldn't they at this stage, right? They ask questions. Now, this is where you get into the objection handling stage. And I've got a whole routine on how to handle objections. It involves clarifying the objection, empathizing, isolating the objection, overcoming the objection, listing them, and then making sure that you're adding perspective to the patient's, con with some pros. And the big pro, right? The big thing that you often have to balance any normal objection with, because, it's true. There's some things are not great. It might be, there might be some downtime in the procedure. There might even be some discomfort in the procedure. There might be some risk with the procedure. Of course, the procedure carries costs, right? All of these things have to be balanced with what? Thereafter. If you can balance that and put patients all the cons in perspective with the big pro, because you've reminded the patient of thereafter again and again and again and again, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I'm doing this. And that's honestly the only reason why patients decide to go forward with a procedure that costs money, has risks, may involve downtime, and may even hurt.
So essentially, I've sold myself.
Absolutely.
You've just helped me to remind myself of what's important to me and my values.
Yeah, I haven't pressured you at all, right? If there's any pressure going on, you've pressured yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where we want to be. Now, as this clinician, I have done my job because the patient said, no, I have no other questions. Super, let's go. I then escort that patient back to the patient liaison who's already met them. It's got to be the same one because they already have a relationship with them. And I hand the patient back to the patient liaison and I say, this is Laura, who you met earlier. She's really excited. I think we can address her before state, the fact that she wears glasses and she wants to get rid of them because they really impact her life negatively. And I think we can get her to where she wants to be, her after state, which is getting rid of those glasses, being free, having the convenience. And I think we can do it within the 3 weeks. It's entirely possible for that to happen if we have the suitability. And you turn to Laura and you say, isn't that right, Laura? And right, Laura's like, yeah, right.
Let's do it.
Now she said yes so many times now, and in front of witnesses. Now she can't feel there's no other option. Like, it just makes no sense at this stage to go, well, everything I told you was a lie and I don't really want this treatment, right? Of course you're going to go forward. So at this stage, the PL offers the dates, right? These are the options, the times, and always a choice of two, right? Never like, do you want to book now? Well, of course they want to book now, right? You don't ask the question, now that you've gone through this whole process, you've been here for, say, 2 hours. Do you want to have treatment? Of course they want to have treatment. So you say, when do you want to have treatment? Then once they've said yes to a date and a time, you've secured that. And you say, in order to hold these dates and times, I need to take a minimal initial investment to do so. That will reserve your place. And the final investment, the balance, is due on the day or 7 days before or whatever your policy is. You get that patient's commitment financially, and they walk out very, very happy because they've made the decision.
It's an enjoyable process, all about me, all about the patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, of course, as they're walking out the door, the receptionist makes sure to stand up again and say, goodbye, thanks for coming, see you next time, right? Importantly, one thing I also missed is that when the surgeon or the clinician says goodbye, they say something along the lines of like, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the treatment, and sign off with a good little handshake, and off they go.
Nice.
Okay?
Nice.
So all of these things matter. None of these things individually are going to like turn the patient around if you haven't got all the basics in place. Mm-hmm. This is a game of centimeters, and little by little by little, we get to the final end destination, which is a happy patient converted. And at worst case scenario, we know why they didn't convert.
Nice. So I think that concludes our overview of a really engaging and satisfying first consultation for a patient, where they feel like they've really had their questions, concerns, and needs met, and they actually leave happier than they were when they came. And that's whether they say yes or no. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
There's a high likelihood that I will say yes. But yes, we know that sort of roughly, if it's done well, about 20% for different reasons, and sometimes it's suitability and that sort of thing, might say no.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But I feel really good. I had a very thorough appointment. I was very well cared for. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm Laura Livesey.
And I'm Rod Solar.
And we've enjoyed talking to you about the consultation process. Again, it's all about you now. So how can you use this information? How can you put it into action right away? Write it down. Go through your consultation process, the first appointment as it is now. Figure out what's happening, who's touching the patient at different stages. Figure out which of these elements you have in place that Rod was talking about. Do you have somebody greeting people warmly when they arrive? Do you inform them of every step of the way? Even before they arrive, what is your initial letter like? After you've kind of meet and greeted them with the reception, do you have that private conversation where you get into their emotions and needs and really fine tune what it is that they want? Do you hand them over to the next person at every stage so that they feel cared for and that, like, they don't have to repeat themselves? And finally, do you give them a clear recommendation? Whoever is providing the clinician role, do you tell them what they need so that they're not left with 10 options, which just slows them down and has them not make a decision? And then finally, at the end, do you hand them back to a patient liaison who gives them choices of options and really assumes the close and says, when would you like to do this? Not, would you like to do this? So I think that's it in a nutshell for our consultation process. I think down below, you'll find some resources about the consultation that you can take and look at in more detail. But I think we'll sign off for today. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.